All right. Well, welcome everybody to another session of Jibe Talking, coming to you from Jolly Roger Sailing Club, where pirates go to play. I'm not supposed to say that anymore. People at the club don't like it, so I'm just tweaking them with that. So leave that in, by the way, Trey. Anyways, the weather here today is very overcast. We're in northern Ohio. Those of you who may not know, this time of year, you might see the sun once every month. Maybe I shouldn't, that's kind of an exaggeration. We might see it twice a month, but it's very overcast and we're all thinking about summer. So what we have today is we have a show with, I don't know what your title is, Scott, but director, founder of Spectrum Sailing. I'll let you introduce yourself. And then we also have somebody from North Cape Yacht Club. Did I say that right?
You did.
Brandie, who was very active with that. And then we have another person named...
I am Christina Columbus. I am going to be coming on as a co-host of the podcast for some of our podcasts this year.
Well, we're trialing her. We'll see how she does first. So, Scott,
this is my interview.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Brandie, you guys can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. My name is Scott Herman. I'm the executive director and founder of Spectrum Sailing. Spectrum Sailing is the only national autism sailing program. And we go around the country and run sailing camps for autistic youth.
Okay. Brandie.
Perfect. My name is Brandie Bohney, and I am the chair of the Adult Learn to Sail program at North Cape Yacht Club. But I also, my day job is a literacy consultant, and so I'm deeply invested in education. And when we heard about Spectrum Sailing coming to North Cape, I immediately got involved. My daughter got involved, and we're just really excited to be able to have the program at North Cape and to be able to be part of this. It's really, really exciting.
But I tell you, Brandie sounds pretty good on the podcast. You might have to have her back more often.
I know. She's very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now,
using my teacher voice today.
Are you using your teacher voice? All right. I did mention on the last podcast that this one will not have Taylor Swift on it, but I usually mention her name just in case that gets us more listens, but you never know. So
I think that's wise.
Yeah, well, that, or I know the Kelsey brothers have my daughter turned me onto their podcast, and they have the #1 podcast in the country now.
Oh, holy cats. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
We're gunning for them. We're sitting at #2, right?
Well, I think we moved down to 3, but we're coming up. We're coming up in the world.
We'll take care of that today.
Yeah.
We got some great content.
That's right.
Tell us, how did Spectrum Sailing just come about?
Sure. So, I've had an opportunity to live in a number of places across the country, and my wife and I relocated back to Charleston, South Carolina about 7 years ago. We have an autistic son. His name is Daniel. He's 15 now. But when we moved back here 7 years ago, the 5 existing clubs in Charleston didn't have the staff or the facilities to welcome in autistic youth. So my son was excluded from sailing camp here in Charleston. After the first year, my wife and I decided that we should probably fix that. So we started a camp locally. We partnered with a local sailing organization, and we ran the first camp. We had 10 spots and 70 kids applied the first year. And that was when my wife and I realized that maybe we were kind of onto something. So we ran it locally for 4 years. We had a COVID year. And then 2 years ago, we took the show on the road, so to speak, and we filed for our own 501c3 as Spectrum Sailing. And that first year, we're in Chicago, Charleston, and Sarasota. So we had 60 kids the first year. And then last year was the year that we really kind of blew up. We were in 8 cities across the country. That's when Toledo was added to the mix. And in 2024, we have 10 camps scheduled. So that'll be over 200 kids will get to sail with us next year, or I should say this year. It's January. And we've never charged a family. All of our camps are free for the kids. And we really believe that we're truly on the forefront of inclusion when it comes to sailing.
Now, how do the camps usually get funded then? Is that by the club? A club sponsors them, or how does that go about?
Yeah, so we are lucky that we have some great partners. One of them is North Cape Yacht Club. For us to be able to be in Toledo, we wouldn't be able to deliver our camps to the families of Northwest Ohio without a sponsor like North Cape. So in this case, they supply us with boats, they supply us with a classroom, they supply us with volunteers. And then to offset the cost of the camp, we have some experts that travel. I have to fly in. Those types of expenses we fundraise in each of the communities that we're in. So last year, as an example, we had Toledo Federation of Teachers. The union stepped up and sponsored us. We had Wells Fargo. We had some other partners in Toledo that made sure that we could cover our expenses to come there and run that camp. And we do that in all the cities that we're in.
What's the most unique locale that you went to or are going to go to next year in 24?
So last year, the most unique was probably Park City, Utah.
Ooh.
I didn't know they had sailing in Utah, but we sailed on a dammed lake and it was gorgeous. You could look up and there were still snow-covered mountains in the distance and we were sailing these J-22s around the lake.
That sounds amazing. I don't remember seeing the pictures from that. I'm going to have to check the Facebook page again.
Yeah, that camp would have been in July. It was the week after 4th of July. So we were in Toledo, Chicago, and then it was Utah last year. And it was I've never sailed in the middle of the mountains. It was amazing. This year, the most unique, we're going to be in Portland, Maine, and we're going to be in Newport Beach, California. So you can't get too much farther apart.
Did you mention to me when I saw you in the Toledo area something about somewhere in the Caribbean was interested in you, or did I make that up?
No. We are in discussion with autism group in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, and so we are hoping that we can add that to the schedule next year.
I volunteer as tribute to go to St. Croix. Absolutely.
That trip is already full.
Yeah. So we found, kind of like you asked me, what do the clubs do and how does that partnership work? I found a fleet of Rhodes 19s down there and found a sailor. And then we have an autism group who wants us to come. They don't know anything about the sailing piece, but they're going to help us, with the kids and with staff and volunteers. So we're starting to put the pieces together. It's just scheduling. And, now a lot of the camps we go to are asking us for multi-year commitments. And so we just got to make it fit. This year I'll be in 10 different cities. Plus I have to travel and speak a couple times. So, the whole idea of this was, for me to be a stay-at-home dad, but I'm traveling more than I did when I worked full-time. So
do you have any plans to kind of multiply Scott, if you will, and have more people out doing what you're doing so you can just blow this thing up? Or right now, do you want to keep your hands on it all? I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way, but I mean.
No, I understand. That's exactly what we're discussing. I was actually on a meeting with a board member this morning, and our growth strategy is top of mind. Of course, none of that is possible without fundraising. So, I work in this role unpaid, and I have a somewhat full-time volunteer who's full-time, helps me. She'll actually be at the camp in Toledo this year. She's based in New Orleans. I met her at our camp down in New Orleans. But ultimately, we have to take that step financially through fundraising to be able to employ some staff and hire people to take my place as we can grow. But we've had some great people work with us at different camps, and we've sort of keep those in the back of our mind for people we could hire when it comes time to make that next step and continue to grow.
Well, tell us a little bit about if you were to go to a camp, are the formats pretty much the same from camp to camp, just location? Or, tell us a little bit about how that would go. Let's say I was wanting to go to a camp, never been to a camp, and I have a kid that I send. What could they expect?
Yeah. So most of our camps run very similar to what I know you and Brandie volunteered last year, and you got to see our camp, firsthand. Most of the camps run very similar to Toledo, but for those of the people that haven't participated in one, I'm happy to walk you through. We break the group of 20 kids into 10. So we have 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon. It's a 3-day long camp. So the kids come in at 9 o'clock for the morning session. We start with a knot of the day, and the kids get to sort of interact and mingle with each other. And then, I have my very famous joke of the day. And then we go through a chalk talk lesson, very similar to any other traditional sailing camp. We keep the lesson fairly short, but then we go out to the boats after we do life jackets and bathroom and sunscreen and water bottles, and we make our way to the boats and we go practice the skills that we learned in the classroom. We really try to keep them on the water as much as we can. So that session runs till noon. Then those kids leave, and at 1 o'clock, we get another set of 10 kids and we do it all over again. So we usually use 3 keel boats. We don't use oppies or prams or anything like that. We use keel boats. And then I'm usually in a coach boat out there with our sailing crew. We'll have one sailing instructor on the boat and then another adult, usually with experience from the autism community. So teachers, nurses, doctors, OTs, PTs, those types of people. And we put them on the boats with the other instructor. So the ratio is 3 kids to 2 adults on 2 boats and 4 kids to 2 adults on another boat. So that's kind of the breakdown and how the camp runs. I
still remember the bad pizza lecture, about the no-go zone and the bad pizza and yeah, that was good. The knot time is pretty fun because I remember one of the young men running around helping everybody do knots, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Brandie, what was involved? Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say one of the takeaways from knots is pretty interesting, and I've had it happen at multiple camps where, Daniel's 15 and he still doesn't tie his shoes. But I've had kids leave camp and then the parent texts me, "Hey, Billy can't tie his shoes till he came to camp. He came home and taught us the 3 knots you taught him, and now he's decided today's the day he's going to learn to tie his shoes." So some of those things that we do that are part of sailing, I don't really care if the kids leave knowing how to tie a bowline, but what it does is it opens up other doors for them and their confidence to try other things like tying their shoes or whatnot. So
what was involved, Brandie? I'm just say, okay, Scott talked about what he does now. What, as far as a club sponsor, what was involved with you guys, and what did you need to do to get ready before those guys even hit the door?
Well, I wasn't directly involved with the organization of it last year, but I do know some of the things that were involved is we had a few members who organized the Coast Guard to come in and meet with the kids, and each of the new sailors got a hat and got to see the Coast Guard boat, and we had...
That's very popular, by the way.
Yes. Oh, that was incredibly... Yeah. And those hats were so cool. Yeah. And then also the mascot from the Toledo Mud Hens came in and saw the kids, and they also handled all of the press. We had a couple of different newspapers and also stations, television stations, come in and do some stories on the camp. And so there was a lot of organization around that. And then we also had a number of members who were involved in organizing meals for between the 2 camps, like to feed all the people who are volunteering. From my end, since I run the adult Learn to Sail program, I'm not the only person in charge of that, but I'm one of the people behind that program. We use the same boats for Spectrum that we use for adult Learn to Sail. So I was involved a lot in making sure that the boats were prepped. My partner, Doug Isaacson, my partner in Adult Learn to Sail, Doug Isaacson, would bring the boats around. We'd make sure everything was clean, everything was organized and ready for the students. I helped in getting some of our Adult Learn to Sail instructors. Those were our our club instructors on each boat. So we had a crew of about 4 or 5 of our adult learn to sail instructors who volunteered to come in during the day. So there was organization around that. There was a lot of communication back and forth with Scott and just making sure that all the logistics ran as necessary. And in part because because Spectrum Sailing was happening at the same time that our adult learn to sail program was sailing, I was also helping with prepping the boats from when the Spectrum Sailing sailors were done at 4:00 and prepping that and making sure everything was ready to go for our adult learn to sail students at 6:00. So those boats were in use for the week of Spectrum Sailing. Those keel boats were in use from like 9 in the morning until 9 in the evening. And so there were some logistics about that. We did help a little bit with volunteers and making sure that there were enough people to man all the boats or to person all the boats, if we want to use some gender inclusive language here. But so like I said, my daughter was involved and was super excited. Like the knot tying part of the day was one of her favorite things as well. But on our end, it was a lot of logistics, and I think initially there was a little bit of concern just because a lot of people didn't know what this was going to look like. They weren't sure how it was going to operate. But there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and support behind Spectrum Sailing from the club at this point. And all of our adult learn to sail instructors were super enthusiastic, absolutely loved it. Some of them said afterwards that it was significantly easier to work with the students in Spectrum than it is to work with teaching adults how to sail.
I would say from a volunteer standpoint, when I came up, that North Cape Yacht Club did a fabulous job at organizing things. The food was good. The boats were ready. They had a nice facility. It was very nice.
Thank you.
It was very nice.
North Cape was a unique camp for us. One is we've never had anyone donate food like that. So we had, basically a catered lunch every day, and that was taken care of by the club, which was very appreciated. A lot of times I'm eating a sandwich from a gas station or something in between camps.
Just don't do gas station
awesome.
Sushi, though, okay, by the way, just a suggestion.
And the other thing that North Cape provided that we've never had before was a family boat. So normally we put the kids on the boats and the moms and dads stay in the parking lot, or they can leave during camp. But in North Cape, we had a member of the yacht club volunteer his trawler. And so he took out a large powerboat and invited the parents to participate. So they were able to go out and actually see their kids sailing versus watching from the shore or me sharing pictures. So that was another unique thing that North Cape offered that our other camps don't. And it's something I'd like to add in the future that we could add, because I think it really magnified the experience for the parents, as well as we had some donors wanted to come out and actually see the camp. We had some City of Toledo council members. We had other people come out and actually want to see what the camp is like. And by having that extra boat there, that allowed that to happen. So North Cape really went above and beyond what they needed to do for us. Some of our camps, it's just our Spectrum staff, and we handle volunteers and we handle all of that. But with North Cape was a great partnership, and they were able to deliver a lot more of that experience than some of the other cities we go to.
I tell you, it was nice too. Parents could come up alongside and take their own pictures. It was so cool. The kids are just so excited. There's mom and dad, and they're getting their picture snapped. And I thought that was just awesome.
Well, and
that's unique.
My husband volunteered as well, and he was never on the boats with the students. He doesn't have a lot of experience working with students who have learning differences, but he was frequently on the parent boat. Jan and Charlie Antal are the ones who took their boat out, and I think they're very enthusiastic about doing that again this year. But my husband Bill said that was one of the most rewarding experiences for him, because he was with parents on the boat, and I know one of the dads broke down in tears seeing his son on a boat, working cooperatively with other students and doing some sailing independently, and it was a very emotional experience for a lot of the parents. So I think that parent boat was particularly important on a number of levels, and I know that's something that my husband regularly talks about, is how important that was to the parents to be able to see what was happening and to be able to see their kids really finding success on those sailboats.
Right.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, I think I consider that, and I talk about it sometimes, as that being like there's a ripple effect, right? So the original idea of all this was to get kids on the water because, my son didn't get to go. So we started that and we got the kids to sail, and that's great. And we've learned that what is really happening with these kids is, we create a really safe space for them and give them an opportunity to learn a new skill. And it just impacts their self-esteem when they leave, and all that is great. But there's other circles that are impacted by the camp, one of which is the volunteers. Brandie mentioned how important and how enthusiastic the volunteers are to come back and teach these kids. So that's rewarding for them as well, not just for the kids that go sailing, but the volunteers who get to participate. And then there's another circle, which is the parents, because these parents don't get to see their kids succeed. They don't get to see their kid invited to camps and invited to programs like this. They don't exist. So that parent group gets to have their break and gets to go out on a boat. These people aren't yacht club kids with autism. These are kids who would never get to go boating. These aren't families that traditionally boat. So the parents get to see all this as well. And I feel like those ripples go out, and there's a number of people impacted, not just the 20 kids that we take sailing. So I love when we show the impact with the parents and how the parents get a break, or they get to form a peer group with each other and ask, well, what dentist do you use? And where does your son get his hair cut? And they get to have their own peer group with the adults. And because these moms aren't sitting at soccer practice talking to each other, but they can stay at Spectrum Sailing and the parents can talk and share. And I think that's probably those ripples are as important as the impact is for just the individual kids that get to sail.
I think Brandie was almost getting ready to cry. So, you talk about volunteers getting touched. You mentioned something, a safe space, which I found really fascinating when we were there. If a kid, and sometimes, somebody listening to this might have a child with autism, and think, I don't know if my kid could do it. Here's what we did. We took a kid out on a boat, and we had radios on the shore. And if a kid was having a hard time and he wanted to come back in, we'd radio in, and they would say, who's coming back in? Somebody would be there to meet him. They had activities for him on the shore. So, and maybe the next day the kid would stay out a little longer. So I like the fact that was all anticipated. We had a child who was kind of unsure. And I said to him, do you want your dad to go with you? And then that was good. Dad went with them. We were out there for an hour, and the kid wanted to come back. And Dad said, I'm sorry. I said, about what? I said, he was out here for an hour. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah. So we took him back, and there's no big deal made about it. It was set up. We dropped the sails. You ran the boat in. We said, you guys still want to go? Yep. Put him back. And we had kids on various levels, degrees of the spectrum, if you will. And we had one young man who played high school football, I remember specifically, and he brought a friend, and they wanted to see if we could heel the boat enough that they could get their butt wet sitting on the rail. Right. And they did make it. They did make it, by the way.
Yeah.
But then there were other kids.
He was a big boy. Yeah.
He was.
But we've had kids. We've had kids that are sailing to the telltale on the third day, keeping the boat in trim. And then we have kids that are nonverbal and never drive or
Right.
don't want to participate. They just want to go out there and take it in. So, we try to include everyone and give everyone an opportunity to participate. Everybody's experience is unique. So successes are different and measured differently for each kid. So some kids, it's just walking on the dock is a success, right?
So essentially, everyone is included. You don't have any hey, you have to meet this criteria. Any kid on the spectrum can participate.
Yep. So we have pretty high registration numbers. We average about 50 kids at camp that actually register. There's a couple things that would exclude someone. We've had kids who don't speak English as their language. So that's a challenge sometimes if I don't have someone that can speak Spanish or speak Russian or whatever the child speaks. If they need a full one-on-one aid 100% of the time, that's a challenge because we really only have room for so many kids. And so if you need a one-on-one aid, then you're taking another kid's space on the boat, which is a bit of a challenge at times. We've had we don't have a nursing staff, so we've had, a child with a feeding tube or something like that we just can't deliver that kind of care that they need just from a staffing standpoint. But pretty much outside of those couple exclusions, everyone has an opportunity. And then we have a lottery and we pick the kids from the lottery. And then the kids that don't make it go on a wait list. And then if we have kids cancel or whatnot, we just go to the wait list and fill up their spot.
Have there ever been any discussion? I might have talked to you about this before, and I thought you said it would be impractical, but about staying somewhere 2 weeks?
That's totally possible as we grow. Right now, as I mentioned, I'm pretty much the staff. And so for me to sort of budget 10 weeks of travel, we have camps locations that we're turning down. As we grow and we bring on staff, to have more of Scott's out there, as you like to say before, there would be no problem with us, staying somewhere. We've actually, I know you've had Miss Kate Fineski on in the past from the Great Lakes.
Today, this morning. Yep.
They've been a great partner of ours, and we've actually been in discussion of maybe for a full summer season, we would hire someone to do just Great Lakes camps. So we would go Cleveland, Toledo, Chicago, back up into Michigan, Milwaukee, where we would have a Great Lakes arm of the camp, and that would be somebody's job for the summer to just run those camps across the Great Lakes. So if there was a demand and a club wanted to keep us, and there was a community that would support the fundraising efforts for 2 weeks of the camp, we could do that at some point.
That sounds amazing.
It does sound pretty cool, doesn't it? Now,
I know all you teachers out there can apply for that job. That would be a dream job for a teacher, because you get the summer and you get to travel all the Great Lakes.
Actually, partnering up with the teachers union, you could find, there'd be a number of people who could sail and do summers. And where do I send my resume, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. I'd say if only I knew a guy.
Who was a nurse, and also, man, I tell you,
In Chicago, we have at Corinthian Yacht Club, we have a gentleman who's volunteered with us for 2 years, and he's a Chicago public school teacher.
Awesome.
And he has a big boat, and I was sort of hinting at it last year, you could sail from camp to camp and stay on your boat. And he was pretty intrigued, but we're not quite there yet. But
that would be pretty incredible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Now let's talk about a practical aspect of it. Let's say somebody's listening and says, I'd love this. How do I give you money? Because you need money, right? Not to be crass, but everything runs on money. And
no, it's true. All these neat ideas and these fun things that we can grow into all will only happen, as we continue to grow support from the community and from businesses. So you have spectrumsailing.org is our website. You're welcome to go there. There's a link there that you could do credit card donation. If anyone wants to donate in any other way, whether it be from a fund or a family foundation or something like that, they can always reach out to me, Scott at spectrumsailing.org. All the contact information is on the website, and I'm happy to discuss any unique donation ideas. We are an open book, and we are open to any great ideas of ways to partner. So we've got some really neat partners online. We had Harkin last year, We're going to add Hark and Derm. Their dermatology product is added this year. We're going to do some sun education. They've actually funded us to go to long sleeve shirts this year. So all of our kids get free shirts this year. They're going to all be long sleeve thanks to Hark and Derm.
Oh, that's great.
Sea Bags is our partner for the main camp. And so they're coming on board as well. So we're really open to working with companies or individuals and talking about how they would want to support us and how they can help us continue to grow.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna step in here for just a second. We are North Cape is hosting a fundraiser regatta on June 22nd this year. So it'll be on a Saturday, and in the spirit of trying to be as inclusive as possible, we didn't want it to be just a points race because that excludes a fairly significant number of sailors. So there will be 2 races involved. One will be a points race, but the other one will be a fun race. We're hoping that we can invite some of the sailors, both from this year's camp and the previous year's camp, to participate in that fun race on one of the boats. We have the plans aren't solidified yet, except for the date. But we do know that we're planning to get some local celebrities for the fun race, and boats can bid on local celebrities, and then the celebrities will pull a handicap. So like you get to take 3 minutes off your time because you've taken the celebrity with you, or whatever the case may be. We're also hoping to have a fun auction to go alongside that, and like we're thinking maybe some food trucks and maybe an ice cream truck. And I know there's a DJ that's interested in volunteering some time to come on board. So for local sailors, you do not have to be a competitive racer. I'm not a competitive racer. Anyone at North Cape will tell you that I participate in Wednesday night races, and I am not good at all. But our hope is to have kind of this fun race alongside that, so that we can include as many people as possible. So if folks from Jolly Roger want to come out for that, we're going to talk to Monroe Boat Club too, and some other local sailing groups. We're really, really excited about the potential for that event.
Now, also along with that, as you know, the sailing week is coming up, is there anything anybody can also do to volunteer who may not be a member of North Cape, but they say, hey, I want to help get you guys prepared? What needs do you guys have with it coming up?
Are you talking about the June 22nd, or are you talking about the Spectrum Sailing Camp right now?
Either.
Okay.
Either. If they want to support the program.
There will definitely be volunteer opportunities for members and non-members alike. So if someone is interested and they say, well, I've never been on a boat, and maybe I don't have a whole lot of experience with students with learning differences, but I'd really love, this is a great program, I'd really love to help out. There are all sorts of things that we can find opportunities for folks, whether it's organization, check-in, helping with food, even if it's just like, for example, on that race day, if someone just wants to come out on one of the boats that is the boat that is kind of seeing how people go out and come back in, and marking people off and marking times and that sort of thing.
Like a race committee boat or something.
Yeah, like a committee. Yeah, thank you. Oh my goodness, words are hard. It's
okay. Didn't you say a reading specialist? So,
I am a reading specialist.
But that's the written words. That's different.
Yeah, well, my PhD is in rhetoric and writing studies. So yeah, it's going really well for me today. I'm clearly demonstrating all of that expertise. But there will absolutely be opportunities. We're hoping for the race day to have a couple of for the fun race to have a couple of goofy challenges along the way. So like, yeah, you get minutes taken off of your time if you throw a water balloon into a bucket that's anchored on a boat.
Why not into another boat?
Yes, perhaps another boat. Maybe we're
that
trying.
Would be the fun race though, because the real racers, if you start throwing up and they start yelling starboard, starboard, that wouldn't go over well.
They will be deeply angry, and we
But you mentioned
we don't want that to happen.
You mentioned in the beginning, this is where the pirates come to play. So the pirates can attack each other in the fun race if they
water
wish.
Cannons.
This will be a really fun, inclusive event. Don't think of it as a stuffy yacht club race. It's not going to be that at all. So
Thurston Howell will be there, though. Thurston Howell the third. That's for you. That's a reference for you older people. Sorry.
Sadly, I am, I believe, one of the celebrities to be bid on. I guess if someone bid enough money, I could dress and wear my ascot, I suppose. But
I would love to see you in an ascot.
I think that is going to be a real draw, Scott. And now that you've said that,
you mean Scott in the ascot?
Yeah, Scott in the ascot. Okay. I don't think you're going to be able to back out of that now. So do pack the ascot.
This is recorded. Scott agreed to wear an ascot if you bid enough money.
I can bring a full yacht club regalia, navy blue coat, ascot.
How about a cap?
White pants.
Do you have a cap?
Yeah. Oh, I'll get a little captain's hat. Yeah. We'll again, it's all for the kids.
When will registration open, or is it open for camp? Does anybody can tell me that?
Yep, I can tell you. We will open registration in April. So right around beginning of April, right after Easter, look for that. And then we'll let the families know. We'll do the lottery like 3 weeks before camp. So families have plenty of time to plan if their child got in or didn't get in.
Okay. But then at that time, are you also going to tell them that about the other event on the 22nd? Then if they can't come, say you may be interested in, would that be appropriate?
Yeah, that'll be, we will partner with North Cape on those communications, whatever, as North Cape wants to promote the event, we'll promote it to our families, to our database of local sailors, as well as we'll have it on our social media and all that. So this is a pilot project, really. And again, I mentioned how North Cape went above and beyond last year with the food and the volunteers and the powerboat. This is another thing where North Cape is really stepping up and hosting an event for us. No other club has done this yet. And I'd love to sort of use this as an example of things that we could do in other clubs around the country. So we're really excited for this event, and we'll make sure that we get the word out. And like Brandie said, you don't have to be a sailor. You don't have to do anything if you want to participate. There'll be a ton of opportunities to volunteer. Can
you imagine the promo for the other clubs? We got Scott in a Speedo with an eye patch on like Captain Ron. What do you think?
Sure. I think this is
it could be a calendar.
This is grade A promotional material. I just can't imagine a better way to promote this.
Right. I'm sure, New York Yacht Club, Annapolis Yacht Club, these prestigious institutions, I'm sure would love to have me there.
I'm certain that will be
as long as you have
an influence.
A jacket on too, though, you'd be
jacket,
all right.
Right? Yeah, I got to wear.
You can't go on the second floor of the club if you don't have the jacket on the tie. But they don't say anything about pants.
Correct. And I'll just wear some Sperry's and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good anywhere with Sperry's.
For real.
Yeah. Do you have anything in closing, Scott? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I can just do a quick rundown on where we're going to be this year. Go. So, because I know you have a very broad listening audience. It's not just in Toledo, but I know we talked quite a bit about our Toledo camp. But we're going to kick it off this year in February. We're in Newport Beach, California. In March, we're going to be in Jacksonville. We're going back to Florida Yacht Club. They're a great host. We love being in Jacksonville. In April, we are going our first time to Houston. We're going to be at Lakewood Yacht Club. We're going to do the camps there on their RS-21 fleet. So we're pretty excited about adding Houston to our calendar. In May, we're going to be in Pensacola, Florida. We've actually partnered with American Magic, the America's Cup team that is based there in Pensacola. And
that's pretty
Pensacola
awesome.
Yacht Club.
That is really awesome. Rad.
It is awesome. And I don't want to over promise and under deliver, but we may be able to get some autographed materials for that auction from American Magic. But 2024, as you can imagine, they're pretty busy. They got a trophy to go in. So they're not going to be on site at our camp in Pensacola this year, but they've already asked for us to come back in 2025, and they want to be hands-on directly part of our camp. So we're pretty jacked about that partnership in Pensacola, as you can imagine. In June, like I mentioned, we're going to be in Toledo, 11, 12, 13th. And then the following week, we're in Chicago with Corinthian Yacht Club, which was one of our original hosts. We love the camp in Chicago. And then we'll have that 22nd in June will be the regatta. In July, we're going to be in Portland, Maine. It'll be the first time we've gone to Maine. So we're excited to add Maine as a destination. And then in August, we go to Holland, Michigan, just up the road a little bit. We actually had a volunteer last year that loved the Toledo camp so much that he chose to come up and volunteer with us in Holland. So we're on Makatawa Bay there with Makatawa Bay Yacht Club and their youth sailing program. And we use their J22s there. So that's a great camp. It's early in August before the kids go back to school. So that's a close one there. Another one that the National Museum of the Great Lakes likes to sponsor that camp as well. And then in September, we're back in Florida. We're in Sarasota. That was one of our original host cities, and we love sailing with the sailing squadron there. It's an amazing place. If someone's looking to come down and volunteer, that's a fun one to do. And then October, we wrap up the year here in Charleston. We'll be back again with College of Charleston sailing program here in Mount Pleasant, where I live, the first weekend in October, with the hopes of our first national. I think we're going to host a virtual gala type event where we bring in a speaker. We have some of the parents talk to kind of wrap up the year, and we're going to do a raffle and whatnot, but that'll be in November. So look for that, invitations for that as well. So that's our year, and we're going to be all over the country. We'd love to have anyone that wants to support us in any of the cities that we're in. Please, of course, financially, we're looking for sponsors as well as donors, but if you want to volunteer as well, we'd love to have you guys on site at any of our camps.
Well, thanks, Scott, for spending some time with us, and that was exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys back here in June myself.
Yeah, I can't wait to sail with you guys.
All right. Have a good day.